This feels very Mr. Rogers. Mr. Adam Rogers teaches everyone how to talk in a comment section, and I mean that as a compliment.
Oh, that's very sweet of you, honey. Let's hope it comes off that way. Hi, I'm yesterday's internet culinary personality, Adam Ragusia. It's no secret that I've been going through some changes lately, and some of them are starting to be noticed by people, and therefore I feel I should probably acknowledge them. In part because the way people are noticing them is making me feel a little weird, and I think maybe we can all take some lessons from this in how we talk about other people's bodies on the internet. Yes, I am quite suddenly quite a bit leaner than I have been lately, and that's something that people are going to remark on. They're certainly going to feel more empowered to remark upon that than if the opposite is true, and the opposite has often been true over the course of my internet career, where I've put on some body fat. And there are some a-holes who will just be like, hey, Adam's looking real fat lately, which is not a good thing to say. If you feel comfortable saying that on the internet, not just about me, but about anyone who's doing content that isn't about their bodies, that doesn't in some way invite comment upon their bodies, if they're just a normal person talking about normal other stuff on the internet, and you feel empowered to just get on there and be like, hey, that person looks fat, I have one question for you, which is, who raised you? Actually, I don't really like who raised you as a clapback, because a lot of people could legitimately respond, no one. I really had no one when I was growing up, or I was raised by a horrible person and that's not my fault. And that's a legitimate response. So all I'm trying to say is, like, what happened to your basic sense of social propriety, right? Because I suspect that, like, regardless of your upbringing, most people watching this probably have a sense where if you're in a public space and you want to comment upon someone's body negatively and they have not invited that comment in any way, they're just going about their lives, like, you probably have the good social sense to not do that within earshot of that person, right? You would be smart enough to just be like, I'm going to wait until we get past that person and then I'm going to share my catty remark with my partner, which, you know, hey, my partner is holding the camera right now, and we share catty remarks with each other all the time. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're bad people. Like, a lot of our conversations begin with one of us saying to the other, I would not say this to anyone other than you, but, right? And that's perfectly fine. However, we have the good sense to, like, not say things that would hurt people's feelings within earshot of them, unless they deserve to have their feelings hurt. But I think there's very rarely cases where that's true. And on the internet, the comparable situation is the comments, right? Like, I don't want to make this all about me. I think this is about you, it's about everyone, but I'm just going to use me as the example because I am at hand. If you comment on a video that I published on my account, then that's really as good as, like, kind of saying it directly to me, or at least within earshot of me. Also, if you were to leave a comment in a space where I have been, like, tagged, or people have been tagging me, or any place where you can reasonably conclude it's likely that I might see it, then that is equivalent to sort of you saying something catty within earshot of me, which is something that, like, most of us just know not to do. But, you know, on the internet, I think the rules are new and different, and we're working them out together, and this is one that I'm trying to assert right now. Treat it like talking about someone in a public space. But I really don't think that I need to tell you any of that. I think most of you know that you probably shouldn't, like, say that someone is getting fat within earshot of them, whether it's the internet or whether it's real life. But let's consider kind of the opposite scenario, which is when a person is kind of leaning out, as I have been lately. What are the rules around that? Is it cool to comment upon that, as lots of people have? Like, I put an Instagram post up the other day of Lauren and I out at a dinner, and a lot of really well-meaning people, I think, were just saying, yo, Adam's looking lean, right? But here's the thing, that also makes me feel weird and a little bit bad. I mean, the reasons for which anyone might lose weight are likely complicated and might not necessarily be good in any kind of conventional sense of the word. So it's not a secret to anyone who's been following me that I've been going through some weird psychological times lately, dealing with some depression issues and some substance abuse. As part of that, I have recently gone completely sober, right? Like, I've cut out alcohol, drugs, everything. And have committed to doing that for a year at least. And when you stop drinking and smoking weed, then yeah, it's going to affect your body in a number of ways, although that could really depend on the individual. For me, it's affected me in the way that you're seeing right now. You can get a shot of this. It might even be illustrative. For this next part, I have to hide this logo, so forgive me while I turn this inside out. So this is obviously a sun's out, guns out situation. And because summer is here, it's also time to be hitting up concerts and comedy shows, other kinds of live entertainment, and where's the best place to acquire tickets to such events? Well, I'll tell you, it's SeatGeek, sponsor of this video. Right now, anyone can use my code ADAM10 to get 10% off any tickets at SeatGeek. Sports, concerts, comedy, whatevs. Whether you are a new or returning customer, doesn't matter, 10% off with my code ADAM10. Honey, who would you like to see live this summer?
Taylor Swift.
And?
Noah Kahan.
Uh-huh. Who else?
Hozier.
Oh, those are some good options. Billie Eilish is touring too, and I'm totally into her new record. Anybody that you want to go see, you can save 10% right now with my code ADAM10. Use my link in the description to go to SeatGeek. Or just take out your phone, add the code ADAM10 to your SeatGeek account, and you'll be ready to go. Save 10%, anybody can do it, but it's a limited time offer, so do it now. Thank you, SeatGeek. When you stop drinking and smoking weed, then yeah, it's going to affect your body in a number of ways. But it's also more than that. I don't want to get into my whole psychological history with y'all, but suffice it to say that I find my basic baseline existence, my baseline experience of my well-being in the world to be kind of intolerable in some ways. And so I'm constantly trying to work some angle to improve how I feel. And that constant drive to feel better manifests in the past as taking too much drugs, drinking too much alcohol, eating too much food, all that kind of stuff. I've alternated between all those things my whole life. But another thing that I do to just try to feel better is to exercise. And also sometimes to not eat, to get the little buzz that you can get from being a little bit hungry, which is something that we've talked about in the past. I have a whole video podcast episode about fasting and how it makes you feel, and there's a reason fasting has been a part of religious traditions for thousands of years. In some ways it can make you feel better. Now, please do not take this as any kind of endorsement of disordered eating. I want people to eat the amount of food that they need in order to feel and be the way that they want to be. All I'm saying is that for me, at this point in my life, I've taken drugs and alcohol off the table. What do I have left to try to feel better on a day-to-day basis? Well, right now it's kind of a fitness kick that I'm on. That's how I am managing my psychological well-being right now. And it's a little bit weird because the fitness kick is much more socially acceptable. Far fewer people are going to shame you for getting fit than will shame you for doing the opposite, or will shame you for doing lots of drugs and alcohol. And yet at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that the fitness kick is something that should be applauded or is without problems. Like, I do not view my current fitness kick as being something that is necessarily fully healthy. My pattern in the past has been to go on a fitness kick for these reasons, and then to end up inevitably overdoing it, the way that I overdo all of my various dependencies. I end up getting hurt in some way. Like right now I'm getting these pains in my feet and my ankles just because I'm doing like too much cardio probably. And I also think that my fitness kicks have historically been kind of a band-aid that I'm putting on my larger and more important body image issues that, I have, you probably have, a lot of us have it. Like, I will admit that I want to be fit and lean, but I am not totally sure I know why that is the case. I could give you a lot of reasons why I think that, the body may legitimately function better at a lower level of body fat than I have had lately. But I also know that it's wrapped up in a lifetime of fat shaming, right? Of being criticized for my body, by people when I was young, and then later as an adult working on the internet. And that has all kind of messed me up. And frankly, I'd rather have like a realistic and healthy body image than have whatever you define a healthy body to be. I'd rather fix what's in my head than fix what's on me. And when you've already invested far too much of your own sense of like self-respect in your body weight, it kind of messes with you when all of a sudden people seem to like you more or be more proud of you for being thin. That doesn't necessarily reinforce what I need reinforced right now. So my point there is just that I'm not totally sure that my present fat loss is necessarily a good thing or entirely a good thing. And therefore, I kind of think you ought not presume that it is, and you ought not presume that I think that it is. It's kind of similar to, if you suspect that you see a person who is pregnant, don't say a word about it because there's a chance that there's something else going on there. Maybe they're not pregnant. Maybe they are pregnant and they're not happy about it. Maybe they are pregnant and it's not going well. Don't talk about it unless they're talking about it, unless they open up the topic. Then you can try to engage on the terms that they set out at the table of that conversation. Now, what's even more important than my feelings is your feelings, all of your feelings. Think about how it makes other people in that comment section feel when they see you heaping praise upon me for being a little bit thinner. Think about how that makes the other people watching feel. Not great, a lot of them. That just adds to the chorus of fat shaming that is pervasive in our society. And even if there's kind of a positive tone to it, that doesn't mean it can't make people feel bad. I think an appropriate rule of thumb for talking about people's bodies is don't, unless they open it up in some way. So, you know, someone is probably going to go unearth a bunch of comments from me on the internet where I've commented on other people's bodies, and I would say two things about that. One is that I have absolutely been an asshole many, many times in my life. I'm constantly trying to reform my previous assholery, as I hope we all are, right? But the other thing is that I would guess that in a lot of those situations, I was commenting upon people's bodies in situations in which comment had been invited. And by the way, inviting comment doesn't just mean putting a comment section at the bottom of the content, right? It means inviting comment on a specific issue, right? So I follow professional bodybuilding. When I go onto a bodybuilder's Instagram and I comment on their physique, that's because that is their whole stock in trade, right? That's their job. That's what they're there to display and to submit for appraisal, which is literally what's happening in a bodybuilding competition, right? And that's a pretty extreme example. Maybe a more debatable example would be like the workout video that I made with the guys at Renaissance Periodization, Dr. Mike. You know, I was not there to be a bodybuilder or anything. I was just there to do a workout and to learn some stuff from Dr. Mike. But you could argue that I was implicitly inviting some degree of comment on my physique in the context of that video, right? Just filming yourself for a workout. If you don't want people to comment upon your physique, it's probably not a very good thing to do. On the other hand, that logic only goes so far, right? It's unwise to park your car unlocked in a high crime neighborhood, right? That doesn't mean that the person who steals the car is blameless. So in that situation, I feel like maybe by doing that workout video, I invited comment on my physique up to the point that would allow for, you know, vaguely positive comments, right? And so when people were saying, hey, Adam looks strong, like I think that that's perfectly fine. When people were saying, hey, Adam would look really good if he, you know, cut a little bit of weight, like even that I feel like is kind of okay, right? I feel like I invited that level of scrutiny. But when people fly in under that and say like, actually Adam looks like shit, most of that mass is just fat, that's a person I want to say, who raised you to, right? Even though, as we established, who raised you is kind of a problematic retort. I mean, let's think about the sort of social rules that is violating. One is like, dude, just let a guy take a compliment, all right? Somebody compliments somebody else, even if you don't agree with the compliment, like you can just let it lie, and you should let it lie unless you have some reason to kind of swoop in with a reality check. So the old rule that a lot of our parents taught us, which was, you know, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. That has limited applicability when you're dealing with adults, right? Sometimes adults need to give other adults reality checks, right? This is not one of those situations, right? Like, I know that I carry muscle and body fat in varying proportions. I don't need to be told that. No one else needs to be told that, like, there's not just muscle here, there's also body fat. That's really obvious to everyone, especially in a Renaissance periodization comment section. So maybe a better rule for adults is, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it unless you have a really good reason to say it. And that's just a conversation that you need to have with yourself in your own head, that I need to have with myself in my own head. Like, I remember one time, I don't want to name names, but there was a wonderful music creator on YouTube, a guy who does guitar videos. And he did this thing where he kind of put two introductions onto the video. And it's something that frustrates me a bit in other people's comments where there's just too much introduction. And I just commented, why'd you put two introductions on the video? And I can't believe I said that. There was no reason for me to say that. And when I kind of found that comment several years later, I deleted it. I bring up that example to emphasize that I'm really trying not to be scolding you here. I'm kind of scolding all of us. I am as guilty of this kind of internet social malfeasance as anyone. However, we're in a position here where Fred Rogers is gone. And I think we need somebody to say things that'll help us all to kind of learn some maybe basic social rules that we need to relearn for a new and in some ways harsher reality in which we find ourselves. And I suppose it's ironic that I bring up Fred Rogers, a man who famously got horribly fat shamed when he was young and ended up trying to maintain and succeeding in maintaining a weight of 147 pounds precisely for almost entirely his adult life, and was apparently somewhat obsessive about it in ways that I think he probably wouldn't have been able to identify as unhealthy because he was alive in a very different social and scientific milieu. But now, in hopefully more enlightened times, I think we could probably retroactively identify a lot of what Fred was doing to stay 147 pounds as somewhat unhealthy and obsessive. And good Lord, I love you, Fred. That is in no way a knock on you. So what have we learned here today? Just because it seems nice doesn't mean it is nice. So when in doubt, say nothing. I realize that's a hard thing to do on the internet, a thing that is constantly screaming for you to talk to it. But we have to do it anyway. All right, good talk.